while waiting, and I realised that it's already started. Or then I speak too quickly. Hello, Eli. I think we're live. It is lovely to see you on a public platform. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's very fun that we're both in Scotland.
It's very fun, and so unfortunate that we couldn't actually meet up in the same location, which would have been a lot of fun. But next time. Let me just see. Can you say, so for students who are watching, we would love you to say hi, just to check that our sound's working. And also, if you'd like us to see your name, only if you'd like us to see your name, you can click on the StreamYard link above. Otherwise, it just says Facebook user. Brilliant. Thank you for your thumbs up. And that's great. So today we are discussing something that you have requested. We wanted to give you some value with our joint experience, and we gave you a choice, or I gave my group members a choice. And we decided.
That was my fault. I apologize.
Was that your fault?
I was trying to also simultaneously watch our live stream to see if that worked. Obviously, it didn't.
Yes, so today we're going to discuss ideas generation, and I tend to focus really a lot on, kind of grammar and sentence structure. But if you haven't got the idea in the first place, it's going to be very difficult to put it into the correct grammar. So I really think that this is such a fundamental part of Ielts, and it really affects students in their speaking as well, speaking and writing. Eli, you've taught on this recently. Would you like to now I'm sure everyone in my group knows you, but would you like to introduce yourself anyway?
Sure. So thank you very much. It's a lot of fun that we're doing this live lesson together, because Joy and I have been talking about doing a live lesson together for about 2 months. And the reason it's taken us 2 months to do the live lesson is I kept on saying, well, you know what? I'm going to Scotland soon. Let's do a live lesson in person, because it'll be so fun for people to see an in-person live lesson, because we're all used to seeing the 2 screens and Zoom conversations. Especially since the pandemic, there aren't that many in-person collaborations. So Joy and I were hoping to do an in-person collaboration, but it was impossible. So we're very close to each other. I think geographically we're only about 10 miles away from each other. But once again, we're doing it over Zoom, or in this case, StreamYard.
Next time, Eli. Sorry.
Yes, next time, and there certainly will be a next time, because as I was telling Joy, my family live in Scotland. I myself live in Ireland, but my family are all based in Scotland, and I come over very regularly, and especially regularly now because my sister has just given birth to a new baby girl. So I'm going to be coming over very regularly to be a good uncle. So next time we'll definitely be able to get an in-person interview. And for those of you or the people out there that don't know me, my name is Eli Howes. I run a website called EnglishProTips.com, and that website has lots of IELTS preparation courses. So, for example, it has speaking courses, writing courses, listening courses, reading courses, and basically try and make the website a one-stop shop for people that want to get ready for the IELTS test. So there's courses on all parts of the IELTS test. And a lot of that knowledge has come from my experience teaching IELTS. I was an IELTS teacher and a language assessment consultant in Asia, so primarily in Shanghai, but actually all across China and also in Spain. I also taught in the UK, in Edinburgh School of English, and in Manchester University as well. But now my sole focus is online, because I really think that's the future of IELTS preparation and English lessons as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Eli. I had no idea that you taught at Edinburgh School of English.
Yeah, I wish I could do it just down the road.
What year was that?
So I did their summer courses, and it must have been in 2015 and 2016.
That's remarkable. So I was teaching on George Street at that time. Okay, so thank you so much for your introduction. And today we're going to bring and for those of you who don't know me, but I think everyone does because we're streaming into my group. Hey. I am Joy, and I focus on IELTS writing. And so I do interactive classes, and I've got an online academy where we focus on getting you to a band 7 in your writing for people who are stuck in the fastest time possible. And that is very much, yes, so that's very much a live writing program. Students actually have to write in the program and get feedback as they go. So today we're going to talk about ideas generation, because of course we need to have the ideas before we start writing. Eli, what would you say is the biggest, and maybe the students can comment here, what would you say is the biggest hurdle or the biggest difficulty with ideas generation? And any students who are listening, what's your difficulty apart from I can't think of ideas?
I mean, I guess that's the crux of it. I can't think of ideas. So I sometimes I think there's two reasons. So the first reason is I'm so nervous I can't think straight.
Right.
So, say for example, you're looking at a question and you're at home and you've got a cup of tea and it's the evening and you're feeling relaxed, you're probably going to find it easier to think of ideas. And then the second, which is on exam day, you've already done the reading test, you're feeling nervous, you only have 1 hour. So the first reason is your nerves might be through the roof and you might be feeling too nervous to think straight and to come up with ideas. So that's one. And then I think the second reason why it's difficult to come up with ideas in the IELTS test is lack of having engaged in these topics before. So maybe the critical thinking skills to do with some of those topics. IELTS questions tend to be kind of general topics that don't require too much specialist knowledge. However, that doesn't make them easy questions to answer. So I think many people also suffer from, well, how do I answer this question? I'm not even nervous. I just find it a difficult topic to engage with. And it's the second group that we're going to be focusing on. It's how to engage with topics in the IELTS test that we're going to look at today. Isn't that right, Joy?
Yes. Absolutely. So we've actually chosen a question, everyone, and it's a question that does come up a lot, and we thought it'd be really useful to look at it. So let me get this question up. And we're going to go through the process of a strategy of how we can think of ideas for this question. So Joy, share screen, this and this and this. Okay. This is our question today. Oh, you can't see it. Should history be taught in schools? Now, has anybody previously... Oh, thank you very much, Mohammed. So's Eli. Thank you. So I didn't see that. I didn't see that Eli couldn't see the comments there. Should history be taught in schools? Now, so for students who are on the live, have you in your life ever had to think about this before? Do you already have an opinion about this, or is this the first time? We'd love to hear from you. So Eli, what are your comments about this question?
Okay, well, I mean, so I would be focusing on the approach of how to think about ideas for this question. And for those students that have seen the live lesson that I did with Keith about 2 weeks ago, I introduced something that I like to do, which is called the multiple perspectives approach, which is basically where you brainstorm all of the people that are affected, or all of the groups that are affected by the question, and then you empathize with them and you think, well, how are they feeling? So, for example, should history be taught in schools? My initial way of looking at this question would be to think, well, who's affected by this question? So certainly students, teachers. I mean, maybe I don't want to spoil too much just in case we can do this as a group together. Joy, I can follow your lead if you want to get more comments from students first, or whether we should brainstorm it ourselves.
Well, let's see if we've got any answers from students. Sometimes there's a delay, but I also think that a lot of people are busy on a Friday afternoon, so they might be watching the replay. But so, for example, Mohammed, what do you personally think about this question? I'd love to know, seeing as you've already commented. I love that multi-perspective approach. Now, this is a question that I would have to think, oh, I don't know if it should or not. We might have to just kind of brainstorm it ourselves,
Yeah,
and give the students
I'd be
kind
very
of
happy to do that. And I
strategy to
think
follow.
what you said there is a very good, very interesting kind of thought process. Because as soon as you repeated the question, you thought, should history be taught in schools? And you felt the need to kind of come up with a position there. You thought, should they, or should they, should history be taught in schools, or shouldn't history be taught in schools? And that's a more overwhelmingly difficult question to answer than who is affected by this situation and how might they feel. So what you do is you take a big topic that's quite abstract and difficult to answer, and then you try and break it down into smaller parts. And by breaking it down into smaller parts, it becomes easier to get to a natural conclusion.
Okay. Now, what about thank you, Eli. What about this actual question? Is this a question that we would actually see in the IELTS, do you think?
No. So you'd never get quite as basic a question as this. This is basically taking the essence of another IELTS question that we looked at early planning this lesson. Shall we have a look at that, Joy?
Let's have a look at that. So this is what we would actually see, or closer to what we'd actually see in an IELTS question. So we've got the different types of IELTS questions, but we always actually have, we don't just have a direct question, we have something called a premise, which could be one sentence or two sentences. It's basically the statement or the topic about the question. And then we have instruction words or a question. So this is much more realistic to what we would see in the IELTS. Now, this is actually quite a common question, I think, a common type of question, Eli, that discuss both views. Do you think that students find it harder to answer this type of question than just give their own opinion?
No, I don't think they do find it harder to answer this this type of question. I think there's room for error, and the errors that I often see is, for example, sometimes students don't discuss both views. They only really mention the view that they believe in, and as soon as they do that, they can't really get a band 6 for task achievement, so they're stopped at band 5. Likewise, maybe they discuss both of the views, but they don't show which side they agree with, or they don't put forward their own position. And again, if they make that mistake, then they're stuck at band 5. They can't move into band 6 or above territory for task achievement. So it's not necessarily a more difficult question to answer, but there's more room for error. So for example, if you have an agree-disagree question, and you have you simply just express your own opinion, that's really all you have to do, and you're already answering the question. Whereas in this question, a discussion question, there's 3 parts that you have to answer. There's the one side, the other side, and your opinion. And if you miss any of those, you can't get above band 5 for task achievement.
Okay. Yes. So, okay, we've got the topic of history. So if we're going through this multi-perspective approach, Eli, who would we be thinking about who are affected by this? I might just change to a different document here. And we can do some writing at the same time.
Yeah. So in the meantime, I'll kind of explain my thought process.
Okay.
So certainly one of the groups would be the children themselves. So we're talking about a subject being taught in school, and is it relevant to their lives? So yes, the children themselves. You might also want to think about a broader educational perspective as well. So not necessarily about a group, but a different way of thinking about the question. So um, if people study, for example, other subjects like STEM subjects, for example, like science and technology subjects, then this might be more beneficial for a country's economy, for example, than say the study of history. That's one perspective. That's not something that I necessarily agree with, but that's also one position that people might have. And so by thinking in those terms, for example, the broader perspective of the education and the economy of a country, you're going to be able to engage with those answers a little bit more easily.
Okay, so in terms of what you just said, what should I put under children? Should I put the group of people that you just talked about, the economy? How do we
Yeah.
name
So
those
okay.
people?
Yeah. So we're going to say, why don't we say that? So other subjects teach children useful skills. So
Other subjects teach children useful skills. Okay.
so that's definitely one idea. Um, However, learning history also teaches useful skills as well, and what you would want to do is in your essay you'd want to develop each of these ideas by giving examples. So we can say history teaches children critical thinking skills.
Okay, so yes, this is what I do with my own students in the academy. We make a table. Yes, history.
Yeah.
No history. Okay.
Mm.
And so history, and you've got some lovely vocabulary there. So critical thinking skills, where we focus for, band 7, we're focusing on good collocations. So yes, history. So teachers, children, critical. How so, Eli? Like, how would we give an example of that thinking?
Yeah. So a good example would be when the students have to engage with the source material. So I remember in my history classes, you would get an account of a historical event, and then you have to engage with that source, and you have to say, well, who is the author? Do they have any reason to be biased, for example? Or how much do they really know about the event that was taking place? So that would be a way that history teaches critical thinking skills.
Okay. So is there bias? Basically, is it the truth? Is it the truth? How can we be sure? Okay, good. Is there bias? Who wrote it? Oh. So that's for yes to history, because it teaches critical thinking skills. How many ideas would you recommend to have, Eli, per body paragraph for this type of question?
I mean, frankly, I would recommend one idea for the side that you don't necessarily agree with, and maybe 2 ideas for the side that you do agree with.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Great. Should we therefore continue? Well, we should, because we want to think of all sorts of perspectives. So we've got the children who are being taught. They are one group of people who are affected by this question. Can anybody else think of what other group or groups of people would be affected by this question? Let me just show you the question again. So the question is, some people think that all children should learn about history at school. Others, however, believe that other subjects are more relevant to children's lives today. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. We must always notice this very critical micro keyword, more relevant. So it's a comparative phrase. So any students who is affected by this question? We've got the children who are being taught, but what other people would be affected by this question? And if you can't think, it's absolutely okay. I just want you to know that both Eli and myself both struggle as well with these types of questions. It's really hard. It's not something that, comes naturally. We don't think about these questions every day, and thinking about them in a different language, writing about them in a different language is a huge task.
Yeah, but I think that's one of the main points of this lesson is looking at some approaches to idea generation. So certainly that multiple perspective approach was one. And then after we look through this comment, maybe we can look at some of the other approaches that I found in my research.
Okay. So I think that would probably means employers. Employers are also affected. They will not hire a history graduate for finance or IT tasks. Okay. So I guess, maybe employers or which ties in with what you said, Eli, like the economy.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I would definitely put that in the table.
So what would you put here? So let's go. So employers, so no history. Employers need relevant skills. Okay. Good. Thank you so much. I didn't see your name because for some Raj. Is that good, buddy Raj? Excellent. Okay, good. Eli, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that, so if we're going for the no history, I think that other subjects do teach students, and especially young children, useful skills that they're going to use in their everyday life. So if you think about computer skills, basically what we're doing right now, which is researching topics, putting together PowerPoint presentations, these skills that we use on a daily basis, and we use them in our personal life and in our professional life. So I think history is not going to help us when it comes to these tasks. But certain other subjects, such as computer skills or computer classes, are going to help us in our everyday life.
Perfect. In our everyday, help us in our everyday life. Now, I've just thought of great. Okay. So for the no side now, for the side that you agree with, we should have two ideas. So how would we develop this idea?
So I guess, first of all, which side do we agree with? Do we think yes history or no history?
Really, really good question. Let's give it to the students and then we can develop the essay. So who thinks that history should be taught in schools? Who thinks that there are more relevant subjects?
Did you study history at school, Joy?
I did. But it was quite a forced curriculum. Now, I went to school in Northern Ireland. So, as you can imagine, in the early 90s, I was at high school, we studied very political history about a time period that I wasn't interested in at all. But I love history, but I love different types of history that were on the school curriculum. And that could actually be an idea. So I love ancient history, and but I didn't love 1930s Irish politics. So what about you, Eli?
Yeah, so I think that just kind of reminded me of something, which was that was a important thing that you said there, although you wouldn't want to focus too much on that being a main idea of your essay, because the question is asking should history be taught in schools, and not which types of history should be taught in schools.
Yeah.
So just as a kind of common mistake that I see when I'm doing writing evaluation is some students get a bit too excited or a bit too much on the details, and they'll slightly misunderstand the question as a result. So they would end up writing an essay on what type of history we should study at schools rather
Yes.
than whether
Yes.
history should be taught.
Yeah.
And just when you were talking there, it kind of reminded me of that, because that's almost, I think, a more interesting question, but
Yeah.
it's not necessarily the question that you're being asked. And I think it's important to take a step back, and even if there's a more interesting question out there, or you've got good ideas for something else, it's really important that you really understand and you take the time to understand what the question is.
Yes. Um, absolutely. And so I actually do think that history should be taught in schools. Not thinking about which type of history, but I think history is important.
Yeah.
We learn about if we look at what's happening in the world at the moment, it's very interesting. And I think it's important to understand why these things are happening, leaders behind them, what's happened in the past. Um, yeah. What's your personal opinion about the question?
Well, I mean, so I'm lucky enough that I can see the comments, and I just saw a great one from Raj, who's our mutual friend, and I loved it.
Yes.
I think this is a really, really strong idea, and this is the kind of idea that could really push your essay. And if you develop this idea well, push your essay into those really high scores, like band 7, 8, and 9.
Yes. So history helps in policy making, especially foreign policy, how to deal with particular countries based on past events. Absolutely. Yes.
Brilliant.
Uh, so yes, I think history should be taught in schools. Eli?
Yeah, I do too, actually. And what I'd like to do, Joy, if you don't mind, is at the
Yeah.
end maybe show students an essay that I've already written on this topic.
Okay.
Just because I realize in the time that we have in the lesson, we're not going to be able to write an essay together, and I think we should focus on the idea generation. But at the end, I'll show everybody a link to a PDF and also to a model essay. Now, one thing that we could maybe kind of move on is some other tips for idea generation. So
Okay,
I was
great.
looking at a website today, Ielts Advantage, which is another very popular Ielts blog, and they also have a YouTube channel and a great VIP course. And I really like their blog, and they have a blog post all about idea generation with 5 tips. And there were 2 ideas I thought were especially good, and I'd like to just share these ideas with everybody. And I'll also I can also send a link to their blog. But one thing they said is as well as having a kind of multiple perspectives approach, which was kind of my central idea, you can kind of visualize that you're in a cafe with either a family member or a friend, and you can explain your point of view, and then imagine what your friend or what your family member would also say. So, for example, if Joy, you and I agree that history should be taught in schools. So, if you try and imagine somebody that you think would not think that history should be taught in schools. So, for example, I have a friend that is a software engineer. I think that he would not agree that history should be taught in schools. So, if I can visualize him, and I can almost have an argument in my head over between us, and that's also going to help me think of ideas. So that was a great idea from IELTS Advantage. So that was one, and then the other one that I really liked is they said you can ask 5 questions. Let me see if I can get them up, and it's basically just 5 question words. It's who, what, why, where, and how. And if you answer or you look at the question from with the 5 question words in mind, then you're going to get a more full picture of the question itself. So, Joy, just so you can write them down, I'll repeat them. First one was who.
Hmm.
Second one was what.
Hmm.
Third was why. Fourth was where, and the fifth one was how. And not that you're necessarily going to have an answer for each one, but it gets you to engage more with the question. And so that was the second idea that I saw from IELTS Advantage that I thought was a really, really good idea.
Wonderful. Okay. Yes, exactly. And I think, it can be kind of like a mental conversation. It doesn't, I think students think they have to imagine or create this very, very complex, wonderful intellectual idea, and it's really not. It's just, your opinion. And my top tip would be and we're going to look at an essay of yours, is that students who are learning to write, and especially in a different language, I promote reading as much as writing. So I always tell my students in the academy, you don't need to think of your own ideas, but you do need to be reading essays on these questions that have ideas that are good and that work, because often these ideas are simple. There may be new ideas to you. And you need to be constantly reading. And I'll just give a little story. I had a student last year called Juvie, and he's just, well, they're all my favorites. I always call them my favorite. He's definitely one of my favorites. And so Julius Filipino, and was working separated from his family who were in the Philippines, and he was working as a healthcare worker in Israel, and needed to get his IELTS in order so the whole family could emigrate to Canada. Now, I think his mother tongue was something called Tagalog, and he just said, my English grammar was awful, and we didn't have articles, and I needed to start from scratch. But what he did was he read 2 essays every night, and I think he read the Maca essays, and I recommended a couple of other websites. So I like IELTS Buddy for sample essays as well. And he said, I didn't have any ideas on any of the IELTS topics, but I decided I needed to read to find ideas, like what did other people think about these questions, because I couldn't think myself. And so we've got a lovely comment here. Are you able to see the comments too, Eli?
Yeah,
that's great. So Juvie, when we did Juvie actually sat his exam and got 7 first time. Absolute, I just think it was just wonderful. Yeah, amazing. But he read and he learned how to identify the central idea in each body paragraph, and then how to summarize that idea in his own language. So he wasn't like memorizing the essay, he wasn't using it as a template, he was learning how to take the central idea, such as cost effectiveness, or he would summarize the central idea and then he would explain it. So my tip for all the students out there is to read essays or read about these topics so that you can learn about ideas that already exist, that you can then explain, because sometimes it's really hard to think of something, but you don't have to, because there are ideas out there. So on that note,
I totally agree with you, Joy. I think that's a great idea. I would also add that sometimes it's a good idea to write the essays before you read them. So you write the essays and then you compare them to the model answers, especially if you've got a long time before your actual exam.
Yes.
Because what you're doing is you're getting a kind of mental comparison of, these are the ideas I had and this is how I explained them. This is the idea that a model answer has and this is how this student explained them. And then you're filling the gaps between the two.
Brilliant. Yes. And I love it when students give themselves enough time for their preparation. They're like, my exam's in 6 months, I'm going to start now. So you've got time to do this, and to develop your thinking skills, develop your writing skills, and match them with other essays. Okay, great.
Just before we move on as well, there's kind of 2 other things I'd like to quickly mention here. The first one is that some students find it easier to come up with ideas if they have a lot of vocabulary on the topics. And Joy, you and I will know that there's certain topics that appear very regularly in IELTS. So environment being one, so history and education more broadly is the second. and things like skills appear very regularly. Cities and transportation appear very regularly as well. And so I definitely recommend students to learn vocabulary related to those topics. And then through learning that vocabulary, often they'll find that it's easier to come up with ideas. And going back to your point, I think one of the best ways to learn vocabulary is actually to read those model essays. So not only are you learning the ideas, but you're also understanding the context for a lot of the vocabulary on those common topics. So you're helping yourself a huge amount in all senses when you're reading these model essays.
Yes. Okay. Read, everyone. So we've got 3 main points here. I'll put this here. So we've got the cafe approach. We've actually got 4 main points. We've got who is affected by this question. Okay. So that's the multi-perspective approach. So I might just put that on our documents, and we're going to be sending something out to you afterwards. So multi-perspective approach. So who is affected by this topic? Let's say, and we thought of children and companies. And then we've got the cafe approach, where you just imagine, and this could maybe just relax you a little bit about it. You just imagine you're sitting with a friend, because we all have friends who have different points of view to us, and I think that's why friendships work, because we're different. And so I can, yes, exactly like you, Eli, I can imagine friends who have different points of view, and especially like my brother's actually one of my besties, my best friends, completely different to me, and he would always argue on things such as health, politics, religion. And so I would think of his point of view. I've got strong views on things, and so does he. So cafe approach, imagine you're sitting with a friend. We could even put in here like contrasting views. Okay, and then we've got the 5 question approach. So who, what, why. So who ties in with Eli's the different perspective, who's affected by the question. And then that last one, what was the last one? Was it read?
Yeah, read model essays.
Read model essays. And I think, and you might be able to speak about this a little bit, Eli, that yes, I think students, or maybe not, students worry about having to come up with something very unique, but it has to be good, but it doesn't have to be unique. We don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, so I mean, another point that we probably can't go into in too much detail is how do you work out which ideas that you should choose? Because if you brainstorm, you've used all these approaches, ideally you're going to have a lot of different ideas. Do you want me to mention that comment? Just put it up.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just putting it up for other students to see. Yes.
That's a great one.
Yeah. Just out of interest, Alexandra, where did you get your model essays? Because, of course, we want to be reading good essays. We don't want to be reading essays, in groups that perhaps are band 5. So just to Alexandra, which essays did you read? But Eli, sorry, yes. I just interrupted you with that comment.
Yeah, where was I?
Which ideas? So you're reading the model essays, and there's lots of different ideas. Which ones should you use?
Yeah, so I mean, so basically, I would choose ideas that are simple to write about, and that you not necessarily intellectually complex ideas, because you're not examined on the complexity of your ideas. You're examined on your ability to convey your ideas. So choose the ideas that are easier for you to write about, and also choose ideas that that you can develop, ideally with examples, because especially for all the students aiming for band 7, which is more or less everybody, you need to develop all of your ideas in order to be getting band 7 for task achievement. And one of the best ways to do that is to have examples. So look at the ideas that you've brainstormed and think, which ones can I write about and which ones can I come up with examples for, and I would choose those because they're going to be easier for you to write about.
Okay, great. That is wonderful. Yes, that's something, this is an idiom that I hammer home to the students as well, and often simplicity is key, Yeah, because we need to be able to develop it well. So, oh.
Right. Great. Yes.
Very good. So the reason I'm laughing, everyone, is because that's actually Eli's course. So where do you get your model essays?
Yeah, so that's great. Alexandra is one of the premium members of English Pro Tips. So yeah, great to see her here today.
That's wonderful. Okay, so Eli, you would like to show a model essay for this question?
Yeah, and I'd quite like to show maybe two resources. And so one is, let me see if I can share this, and I probably won't be able to see the screen anymore. You just shout if I'm
gonna stop this screen share from my side, okay?
Okay, so this is a website that I'd quite like to show people. Joy, can you just confirm that you can see it?
I wonder if I need to add it to the... Oh, look at this.
Yeah. Can you see this?
Yeah, I can see it. Can the students see it? Can you guys see it?
So this is procon.org, and basically it's a great website because it's just got so many interesting topics, and it shows you the pros and the cons for each of them. So here's one for homework. So kind of question like, what are the pros and what are the cons for homework? And basically it's a great format because it has, look, pro 1, homework improves student achievement. Con 1, too much homework can be harmful. So you've got the headings and you immediately understand what that idea is. And then below that here, you've got a little bit more information on that particular idea. It's a great website. And then here, pro 2, homework helps to reinforce classroom learning while developing good study habits and life skills. Con 2, homework creates the divide on or homework gap. So you'll find that, look, so this has got 3 pros and 3 cons. And if we go back, you'll find a lot of the same topics here that appear in Ielts exams. And I think that's because Ielts examiners, when they're making the questions, I think they use websites like these to make sure that there's lots of ideas that students can write about. So here's one on should students have to wear school uniforms, which is a lesson that I did recently on Keith's YouTube channel. And pro 1, con 1, and look, if you go all the way down, we've got how many? We've got 13 pros and 13 cons, so 13 ideas. And then we've also got all of the comments below, which I quite enjoy reading because it helps you improve your critical thinking skills as well. So have a look. This is procon.org, and just give yourself time to read some of these topics. And it's going to help you improve your critical thinking skills and also learn good ideas and vocabulary on a lot of the common topics that appear in Ielts. Joy, can you just confirm that you can still hear?
Yes. Yep. I'm just dumbfounded that I didn't know about this website. It's absolutely wonderful. I'll be sharing this with my students in the academy today.
Oh yeah, please. Yeah, I think it's a great one.
Yeah. So it's called procon.org.
Procon.org. I'd also like to quickly show this this is the Ielts Advantage, how to think of ideas for writing task 2, which is where we took the cafe approach and the 5-question approach as well, which I think is a great website. And then lastly, I'd like to show, this is my website here, is English Pro Tips. And basically you can start learning for free. So you just click here and you sign up, and that takes you to a free registration page. And then afterwards you get your user dashboard, which has your photo here. And then it has your courses. So you get free access to all of the courses. Although if that's just a start, and then if you want to continue with the courses, you have to become a member. You get questions, speaking simulations, speaking tests, PDFs, so things that you can download. And what I want to show you is the model essays. So Joy, you were talking about the importance of reading model essays for helping you to think of good ideas and also for learning vocabulary. And I totally agree. So as a member, you'll have access to lots of, band 8, band 9 model essays. And somewhere here is a question is what we've looked at today, which is, should history be taught? So here it is. Here it's a discussion essay, and I think that these model essays are a great way to learn. But I think in order to really engage with them, it's fun to have them in some sort of activity. So I've basically got them as a bit of a gap fill. So I was thinking maybe as a group, Joy, we could do this together.
That would be
So
great. I wonder if there's any way to just enlarge your screen a little bit.
yeah,
Do you have the ability to do that?
yeah. How's that? Or even
Maybe
bigger?
just one more. Yeah. So we're going to do this essay together, and then we're going to wrap up. Wonderful. So people have different views on.
Okay.
Now, what are the options there?
Mm-hmm. So this is a
Great.
typical spelling mistake. We've got whether with a WH or whether with a WEA.
Okay. Now, because of the delay, so Alexandra, Shule, would you like to tell us the answer here, please? Because of the delay, we might have to just do it ourselves, Eli.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll get them all correct, Joy. So let's go. I'll go for the first one. I'm going to go for this, the WH. Okay, great. We got the tick. Okay, whether history should be taught at school.
Thanks, Eunice.
Now,
thank you.
slightly more tricky one. We've got although and despite. Joy, maybe you'd have a go at this one.
Now, let me see. Although or despite. So we've got there are good arguments. So we've got here. Oh, there is a delay because everyone's now saying whether. That's great. So this seems to be an independent clause. There seems to be subject and verb. Yeah. So Eunice, thank you. Let's go with although.
Great.
There are good arguments in favour, which are more relevant. I would argue that all children should learn about history at school. What a lovely introduction. Okay, so that covers everything in the question and the introduction. We've got a lovely paraphrase, and you're contrasting both views, and you're also giving your opinion, which I believe we need to do in an introduction if we're asked to. Yeah. So I think common mistake would be, this essay will discuss both views and give my opinion. Well, actually, you need to give your opinion in the introduction. Okay. Those that feel that history should to be or should be.
So Joy, you just let me know what everybody thinks, and I'll click on what the majority go for.
Oh, Alexandra says she can't read it. It's because yeah. So I'm going to say should be. Everyone's saying should be. Should be.
Should be.
Is that Point out the relevance of other subjects such as information technology. When children have information technology classes, they learn valuable skills that can help them in their daily lives. Let's see the options here, Eli. Such as. Just it takes about 10 seconds for the delay to catch up.
That's fine. It's a bit of suspense.
It is suspense. Such as, thank you, Eunice. Such as, good, how to use web resources to research school topics or use PowerPoint for class presentations. History, they argue, does not teach valuable skills, only facts and dates to be remembered. So it's a lovely first paragraph. And we see here that there's one main view. So this is the view that we don't agree with. And there's just one central topic, and that's about the relevance. So great. Okay, on to the next one. However, I would argue. Suspense. Would. We've got a would, Eli.
Great.
I would argue that children should learn about history as it teaches them to analyze the conditions and circumstances that change human behavior, events, and trends. Okay, history serves as a vast repository of knowledge or knowledges. Knowledge. I'm just going with the first answer about how and why events come to be. This is why economists look at past business cycles to predict or prediction. Eunice, the other one was correct. Knowledge is only singular, uncountable. Alexandra's continuing to say would. Alexandra, we've moved on. Predict. Financial crisis. Scientists look at past experiments to pioneer new discoveries, and politicians look at the decisions of previous leaders to determine their plan of action. So this is developed so beautifully. This is, what lovely examples of analyzing human behavior, different types of human behavior. We've got financial and scientific. Okay. New sentence. Study or studying. History teaches children the importance studying, very good, of determining specific conditions and circumstances that led to certain events so that they may make more informed or clear. Now, so Eunice, we can't say study because we can't put an infinitive verb at the beginning of a sentence. Clear. Now, I'm going to say, Eli, informed. I'm going to say, yeah, we've got someone who says informed. Informed decisions is a lovely collocation, I think. Well, let's see if it's right anyway. In conclusion, while some would point out that other subjects teach relevant skills to children, I would argue that all children should learn about history as it is a valuable or amazing. Valuable source of knowledge that can help in decision making. Yeah, may I commend you on? Yeah, oh, thank you. I'm so proud of my group. Although some of them seem to be yours as well. They didn't let me down.
Great, that's good. That's wonderful. That's 10 out of 10.
Now it's interesting, reading this essay. It's great because I actually got into a dispute with a student a while ago who said, for this type of essay, you must have one paragraph for one opinion, one paragraph for the other opinion, a third body paragraph for your opinion, and then conclusion. And my argument is that actually it becomes a bit too diluted then. You can't really develop the ideas very much. I contacted some examiners, Eli, to check, because this is exactly how I would teach. I would say, talk about the opposite view first, then talk about the view you agree with. It's the most effective. It's the quickest way it's the most effective way to answer this. So it's great to see this essay's got some high level vocabulary. Now, Eli, is this in your free or is this in your paid membership?
Yeah, this is actually my paid membership, but what I'm going to do is make it free for the next kind of 48 hours so that all of the students can get access to this essay. It's normally in my paid membership, but I think, yeah, it'd be great if everybody can have a look. And I'd also just like to show people that below we have a useful vocabulary section. So we learn phrases like in favor, or point out, or valuable skills, or vast repository of information. So we can learn a lot of the phrases and vocabulary that we have in this essay. So, let's see, stop sharing. There we go, I'm back. So yeah, so don't on it quite yet. It'll just take me about 2 minutes to make sure that this is available for all of your students for free. So they will need to set up a free account on my website in order to get access to that. And I'll put a link to that below. Maybe, Joy, do you think people could ask for it in the comments section, and I'll be able to send them the link?
Yeah, so if you just comment free essay, everyone who's watching this, if you comment free essay, I'll be sending out the replay, and then Eli will can reply to you and can put his website link. So that's wonderful. Now, I actually did a live writing masterclass a few weeks ago, and it was on a to what extent essay. And I was going to plan the next one for cause and solution, but I might actually do it for discuss for both views because it's such a common question. But it would be great for students to analyze that model essay, to look at the main central idea, and to look at the vocabulary. Yeah, so we want to know now. I'm actually teaching in my academy in a couple of minutes, but we would love to know: has this been valuable for you, and has it helped you with ideas about how to? Could you send me the link for free essays? Great, great. And anyone else who wants that, just type free essay in the comments. Has this been valuable for you? That's what we would like to know. It's lovely to see how your program works as well, Eli. So, and it's brilliant to learn about the free tips, the pros and cons website.
It's great, isn't it? Okay, yeah. Joy, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. And Sule says free essays as well. Okay, great. So we will see you all soon to deliver some more value, and I'll keep you posted about my next masterclass. Bye.
Bye then. Thank you, Joy. And thank you everyone for watching.
You're welcome.